Hi folks, Mr. Long here. I'm going to do a screencast today on the product rule. And so what we're going to do is look at how functions that are in a product behave when we're getting the rate of change, okay? So think of it as f of x multiplied by g of x, but we're going to shorten that to a times b to make things simpler. So I'm going to start by developing the rule. Okay, start by developing the rule. And here's how we're going to do it with a specific example. And I think you're going to find that this is fairly easy. So we've got a rectangle here. A equals 20, or sorry, that should be b there. B equals, how about we erase that? So my apologies. So what we're going to do there is b equals 40 and a equals 20. And so what we're doing now is we're going to figure out if this has a rate of change of 0.1 for each of a and b. So in other words, a grows by, so this length here is a, so that means the growth rate there is a prime, right? So a prime equals 0.1. Similarly, b grows by the small amount right here of 0.1. Okay, so a is growing by 0.1 and b is growing by 0.1. And that's b prime. So we have things growing in both directions, right? It's a rectangle. And so if we want to get the total amount of growth, and by the way, we're going to say that the area of this rectangle is y. Okay, that means the rate of change, the rate of growth is y prime, right? So let's look at how much this rectangle actually grows by. So the original amount is the original rectangle, 20 by 40. Okay, that's the original rectangle. What happens next is we get some growth. Okay, so we're going to get some growth. And what does that look like in terms of the growth? Well, we can see that it grew by 0.1. So if I look, what is the area of that little section there? Okay, what is the area of that little section? Well, it's 0.1 wide and it is 20 tall. Okay, so, and what about, let's look at the other ones while we're at it. What about this little section here? What is that section worth? Well, that is 0.1 tall and it is 40 wide. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call these rectangles. I'll call this rectangle 1, and this is rectangle 2, and this little square is rectangle 3. They're all rectangles, and that represents the growth, right? This part here is the original rectangle. Okay, so it's the area of 1 plus the area of 2 plus the area of 3. That's the growth, right? Y prime means change. So we're looking at the change in area, not the area, but the change in area. So if I start at 40 and grow by 0.1, if I start at 20 and grow by 0.1. Okay, so when I do that, Y prime is now going to equal, the area of 1 is 0.1, this 0.1 right here, multiplied by 40. Plus, now I have to get this rectangle up here, that one. And it's 20 tall, right? It's 20 tall. And it has a width of, there to there, 0.1. Then the area of that little thing is 0.1 squared. Okay, 0.1 squared. So let's go through this now and see if we can get an answer. So 0.1 times 40 is 4. 20 times 0.1 is 2. And 0.1 is 0.01. So it looks so y prime is 6.01. Now, let's think about that for a second. What if we made this b prime and a prime really small, right? Infinitely small, just like we do in calculus. What then would the area of this be? Okay, it would be extremely small, right? Extremely small. In fact, if we made it extremely small, infinitely small, this would go to 0 every time. Of course, these numbers would be much smaller, but because we're multiplying by a 40 and a 20, it actually does have some quantity to it. Okay, so that would change. So really we just have the 4 plus the 2. Let's now go over where those letters come from. So what is the 0.1 as it relates to the 40? Well, the 40 is this distance here to here, okay? And then, the 0.1 times 40, that's this rectangle here, rectangle 1. So that distance there is, that's 40, and that distance is 0.1. That's B, and that's A prime, right? So A prime is 0.1, and that's B. This rectangle has dimensions of A prime by B. A prime multiplied by B plus, then I have to do this rectangle here. And what would its dimensions be? Well, it's 20 tall, right? And that's A. And it's 0.1 wide, which is B prime. Oh, so that's A, B prime. And that's the overall rate of change. By the way, that's the product rule. Okay, folks, so that's the development of the product rule. And that is something that I may ask you to do in a test. I may give you a rectangle with dimensions and have you go through those calculations, and from those calculations deduce the product rule. Okay, so it's, if we think of it in words, if I have a function a times b, then like a and b are separate functions multiplied together. Then if I want to find the overall rate of change, tangent slope function or derivative, it all means the same thing. I take the derivative of a, multiply it by b, plus the function a, and I multiply it by the derivative of b. And that's the product rule. In the next screencast, we're going to go over some specific examples for the product rule, and we're going to extend it to the quotient rule.